A new mission for the USS Constitution. Chapter 6.
David ordered. One laser shot across her bow. The enemy ship came to a halt, and a message appeared on the view screen of the Constitution.
Stand clear. Self-destruct in 60 seconds.
David ordered. Screens up. Stand fast, hold tight. Then the renegade ship disappeared in a ball of fire. David called down to the sensor lab. Dale, what can you tell me about the debris out there? Dale reported.
Unknown metal, plastic, fibers, and some flesh. All material unknown to the United System. I've cataloged the debris as best I can, sir.
David asked. Dale, did you get scans of the ships before the explosion? Dale responded.
Just superficial scans, sir. Enough to ascertain the fact that they were not what they appeared to be. The visual appearance was a hologram, the voice was artificial, and the transponders were not of the ships they purported to be.
David smiled. Dale, if I keep you in the sensor section, you just might get it right someday. Thank you, Commander. Top job as usual. Thank your staff for the great job done today. A smile in Dale's voice.
Thank you, sir.
David turned to Admiral Sims, smiling. I think you have made a great choice for a mate. Just remember, Dale's part of my crew. The Admiral nodded.
I plan on taking him with me when we leave. But it's really up to him.
Later, after dinner, Susan and Dale talked about the future, their future in the Navy, future assignments, and children. Dale told her.
I love you, and I want all these things, but this assignment is the best in the Navy. Our captain, Captain Stevens, is, by far, the best captain in the service. He's smart, and tactically he's on par with Admiral Halloran. He's fair, compassionate, demanding, and forgiving. No captain can even be compared with him.
Susan remarked.
I know. That's why I chose him for this mission.
Dale looked at Susan.
Let's not worry about this until our mission is over.
She just nodded her head and started toward the bedroom. David took a crooked course from Sector 00 to Proxima to Krill Space to the Lagoon Nebula until Admiral Keeler visited him one day.
Captain, we have completed the draft of a peace treaty. Now, if you would return our Krill friends to their homeworld and the ambassador and I to Earth, we will present the proposal to our governments for ratification.
David asked, have you informed Admiral Sims? He replied,
No, would you inform her? I'm exhausted. I'm going to sleep until we get to Sector 00.
David just nodded and called, Admiral Sims, Admiral Keeler just told me they have their draft treaty to present to their governments. We are on our way to the Krill homeworld. She answered.
Acknowledged. Thank you, Captain.
David ordered, Hank, plot a course to the Krill homeworld. But configure our course like a corkscrew. Hank turned, a puzzled look on his face.
Corkscrew?
Stella leaned over and tapped Hank on the shoulder.
Like a spiral noodle.
Hank's face lit up, then fingers flew over the keyboard. He replied.
Aye, sir.
Then David ordered, Helm, UL 1 to 16 and back. Stella just smiled.
Aye, sir.
In time, the Constitution established orbit above the Krill homeworld and teleported their representatives to the surface. But 3 Krill battle cruisers appeared with weapons hot before the ship could leave orbit. Dale's voice came over the comm.
Red alert! Krill battle cruisers approaching!
David ordered, shields, fire lasers. Ensigns Waters, Wong, and Nakamura, to your escort station. I want our 3 ships to appear behind the Krill battle cruisers. Now, the 3 ensigns ran to the escort lab.
Aye, sir.
The USS Enterprise, USS Defiant, and the USS John Paul Jones appeared to the rear of the Krill battle cruisers. A moment later, the battle cruisers turned tail and ran. David ordered, Lieutenant Stevens, Hank, Sector 00, same corkscrew pattern. Execute. Larry, bring those 3 ensigns to the ready room, please. A little later, in the ready room, David shook the hands of his 3 escort experts. Thank you, Nakamura, Wong, Waters. That was perfect. I've another challenge for you. But I want you 3 to make your duty station the escort lab. You will need to drill. Tell me what you need to provide 24-hour coverage. I want a fleet of ships available to surround any attackers. You don't even have to use the names and configurations of existing Navy ships. But I want believable ships. Ensign Nakamura replied.
Captain, I believe we would need at least 2 knowledgeable sailors on each shift. And we would have to drill with the new sailors until they would be as good as we are.
David looked at Ensign Waters. He just shrugged.
She is the planner and organizer for us. I'm the programmer, and Wong does whatever is needed in the heat of the moment. But each of us can do the job alone.
David smiled. You're a damn good team. Choose the others you think will compliment you. Thank you again. Dismissed. Ensigns Nakamura and Wong exited, but Ensign Waters paused.
Captain, would it be permissible for me to date Carol, Ensign Nakamura?
David nodded, only if she is agreeable to it. Then he left the ready room. David sighed. Young love. David sat and thought. He thought about his first wife and kids, killed in an automobile accident 500 years ago, and he cried. Then he thought about Stella, a young Air Force sergeant half his age that he fell for, lost, and reclaimed, now mother of his son and little princes. Finally, he stepped out of the ready room. Larry, you have the con. Let's head to Sector 00, UL-12. Lieutenant Stevens, you're with me. Larry, it's yours till shift change. In the lift, David said, I'll go get Ginny and little Davy, and we can spend some quality time as a family. Okay? The little family thoroughly enjoyed the evening together. As they put Ginny and little Davy to bed, the communicator sounded.
Captain, sensors tell us that we have a blockade before us, about 4,000 kilometers.
David replied, on my way. He kissed Stella, be back when I can. Stella just sighed and nodded. As David entered the lift, he ordered, Joel, I want Commander Sims in the sensor lab, and I want the escort team in the escort lab. Joel responded.
Aye, aye, sir!
When they arrived on the bridge, he asked whether Dale and the escort team were at their duty station. Joel replied.
They just reported in.
David called Dale. Dale, I want to know just what we are facing as soon as possible. He heard Dale and Susan's voices.
Aye,
Aye,
sir.
sir.
Then David spoke to Ensign Waters. Kit, duplicate our 3-ship escort. Just change the names on the hull. Make up any name you want. Get a couple of ensigns to side saddle with you and get me a fleet of 12 ships as best as you can. Ensign Nakamura's voice replied.
We'll do the best we can, sir.
David replied, I expect nothing less. Thank you, Carol. Susan's voice came over the comm.
Captain, we seem to be approaching a blockade of 6 Krill battle cruisers at about 2,000 kilometers.
David ordered. Red alert. All hands battle stations. Weapons ready. Load all torpedo tubes. Lieutenant Sapelli open hailing channels. David ordered Krill battle cruisers. This is the USS Constitution. Stand down. Move your ships or be prepared to battle. At 500 kilometers, the Krill ships had not moved. David ordered Waters. I need that fleet now. Suddenly, 12 ships of United System design appeared as from out of UL. Commands came from the fleet in the voice of George Perry.
Stand down, surrender or prepare to be blown out of space. Fleet, prepare to fire all weapons.
David ordered, torpedoes fire. And 20 quantum torpedoes were launched toward the Krill fleet. The Krill fleet took the torpedoes and suffered crippling damage to 3 ships. Like other bullies, the 3 ships that could move, ran. David ordered, weapons, target those 3 crippled ships. Hold for my word. Larry, I want 3 boarding crews to take those ships. Stand by. Lieutenant Zappelli, hail those ships. As Mark commanded the ships to prepare to be boarded, all 3 ships blew up in a firestorm. David ordered, Ensign Nakamura, stand down. David sat back in the command chair. All hands, condition green. Get some sleep. This is going to be a long, tough trip. Then David talked to Commander Sims. Dale, tell me something. Dale replied.
Captain, there is no organic material in the debris. It's mostly an unknown metal and plastic. I don't believe they were Krill battle cruisers, just fakes.
David replied, good work, Dale. I want you to be ready to tell me in a moment whether the ships we face are real battle cruisers or fakes anytime we have to face such a threat. Dale responded.
Aye, sir.
But you could hear the smile in his voice, then Susan's voice with a smile too.
Aye, sir.
Down in the sensor lab, Admiral and Commander Sims held on to each other, smiling and kissing as the others in the lab turned away. Someone said, hey guys, get a room. Then, finally, Admiral Sims said.
Thank you all.
And the pair left the lab for their cabin. David turned toward the lift. Joel, you have the con. I'll be in my cabin. And he heard as he left.
Aye, aye, sir.
Ensign Waters tapped Ensign Wong as Ensign Nakamura left the lab.
Harry, I want to date Carol, but I don't want to step on your toes. Would it be okay with you?
Harry smiled.
Have at, old friend. I have my ensign lane.
Steve breathed a sigh of relief.
Thanks, good luck with Lucy.
Morning came, and David awoke to the sound of the red alert klaxon. Commander Kiter's voice.
Captain, 4 Defender-class ships dead ahead in 100,000 kilometers forming a blockade.
David ordered, full quantum torpedo spread, at 100 kilometers, fire. David dressed and left for the bridge. O'Reilly called David.
Captain, we're running out of torpedoes.
David responded, replicate what we need and then juice up the batteries. O'Reilly responded.
Aye aye sir.
David called, Sensor Lab, what do we have? Dale's voice returned.
Captain, according to our sensors, the ships ahead of us are fake. Only 1/10 the mass needed to be any class United System ship.
Tall called.
Captain, we are being hailed.
David responded, on screen. Admiral Maravich appeared on the view screen.
Captain Stevens, how long before you arrive at Sector 00?
David replied, I don't know. We are being harassed by fake Krill battle cruisers and, now, by seemingly 4 fake Defender-class ships. But we'll fight on until we arrive home. Admiral Maravich replied.
Continue the mark, Captain. Give me a call when you get home. Marriage out.
Hank sounded off.
Sir, 100 kilometers.
David ordered, torpedoes, fire. With that, the 4 fake ships were engulfed in a ball of fire. David ordered, helm, O'Reilly, UL-17, now. Stella and O'Reilly snapped.
Aye, sir.
David and Larry talked. Larry, I keep asking myself, why all this harassment? What do you think? Larry thought.
Could be they're making us too confident so that they can hit us with the real thing next time. Softening us up, so to speak, thinking we're wasting our torpedoes.
David thought, good thing our replicators are not size restricted. David called down to engineering. O'Reilly, how long does it take to juice up the batteries on the replicated torpedoes? O'Reilly replied.
I've pushed the power to the maximum safe limit, and it takes about 30 minutes, sir.
David replied, put a team on it and fill our racks and our tubes. We are going to have to fight for real before we get home. O'Reilly responded.
Aye, aye, sir.
The USS Constitution ran at UL-17 hours on end, then at 0207 hours. Commander Kiter's voice woke David.
Captain, we are again faced with 4 Krill battle cruisers 200,000 kilometers ahead.
David answered. Red alert, battle stations. All hands on deck. Prepare a full torpedo spread, UL-5. On my way, Commander. David arrived on the bridge and ordered, SL-50, sub-light speed 50% of light speed. At an agonizing pace, the Constitution approached the battle cruisers. David ordered, hail those ships. Then, Krill battle cruisers, stand down. They received only silence. David ordered, Krill battle cruisers, stand down or prepare for battle. You have 5 minutes. Then, 4 minutes. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. 1 minute. Fire torpedoes, full spread. Fire lasers. The cruiser's shields deflected the lasers, but the quantum torpedoes crippled 2 cruisers that were destroyed in a firestorm, while the remaining 2 cut and ran. David called the sensor lab. Dale, what were those ships? He replied.
I don't know. They were battle cruisers, but not Krill. Judging by the debris, they were made of Terran materials.
Meanwhile, David ordered that the ship chase down the remaining 2 ships. Of course, the 2 renegades split. David chose one and crippled it with incessant laser fire to its engines. The renegade stopped, turned, and powered up its weapons. The 2 ships faced each other like 2 gunslingers in the Wild West of the United States in 19th century Dodge City, each one waiting for the other to make the first move. David muttered under his breath, "Your mother wears army shoes." Hank's laugh blasted out as his hand jerked and fired a laser shot across the bow of the renegade, then all hell broke loose. The renegade turned and attempted to run. David shouted, "Target their weapons array." The laser reached out and blasted the renegade's weapons array, creating a massive hole in the side of the ship. In his excitement, Tall shouted.
Captain, we're being hailed.
David could only smile. On screen. On the screen was the face of Admiral York.
Captain Stevens, we surrender.
David regarded the former chief of naval operations. Sir, why? The admiral replied.
Money. Oh, I heard you telling Admiral Oloran to follow the money. The weapons conglomerate would have lost billions of credits if the treaty had been ratified. And I had been paid 1 million credits to sabotage the peace efforts.
David asked. I thought Admiral Halloran was a longtime friend. Why arrest him? York answered.
He could not be corrupted. He was the only man to outrank me. He was the only threat.
David said, prepare to be boarded. Our boarding party will be loaded for bear, with orders to shoot first and ask questions later. Understand? York nodded.
Understood.
David ordered, Larry, I want Commander Keeler to head the boarding party. The party is to be composed of the toughest security crewmen we have, orders to shoot first and ask questions after. In the teleporter room, David ordered, Gentlemen, you will go in shooting anything that moves. Commander Keeler, I want Admiral York brought back here in chains. Understood? He is no longer a naval officer. Shoot if you must. Almost immediately, Commander Keeler's voice came over the comm.
Captain, there is only one body here. It appears that Admiral York took his own life. There is no other person on this ship.
David replied, download the computer core, set an explosive charge for 30 minutes, and return. The commander replied,
Aye, sir.
30 minutes later and that ship disappeared in a ball of fire. Larry said,
Captain, what about the other ship? We're a lot faster than they are, and Commander Sims should be able to track them.
David nodded, so ordered, Larry, this one's yours. Admiral and Commander Sims were in the sensor lab tracking the second rogue ship as Larry directed the flight. The trace had been slight, but as the Constitution raced, the trace became stronger until the rogue ship loomed dead ahead. Larry ordered a laser shot across the fleeing ship's bow. Dale called.
Bridge, sensors indicate 2 life forms aboard that ship.
Larry asked.
What can you tell me about those life forms? The one on the bridge is a human male. The other is a Krill female. She seems to be in an aft compartment, motionless.
Suddenly Susan's voice shouted.
The Krill female is Sheila, the Krill representative.
Larry ordered.
Give the Krill's coordinates to the teleporter and get her out of there.
A moment and teleporter crewman O'Reilly's voice said.
I've got her.
Larry ordered.
Bring her up here, please.
David stood and watched as Larry disabled the rogue's engines and weapons. He nodded his head in admiring approval. What now, number 1? Larry ordered.
Shirley, teleport the other person as soon as security gets there. Security, for crewmen, armed, to the teleporter room. Bring the human that is being teleported to the bridge in irons.
When Sheila entered the bridge, she ran to David crying, saying,
Oh Captain, thank you for my rescue. I was terrified. Oh thank you.
David pointed to Larry. Sheila, this was his rescue. She went over to Larry and caressed his hand with one of her upper extremities.
Thank you, sir.
Larry stayed still as she caressed his hands, then asked,
What about Carter?
Finally, she broke down.
They made me watch as they murdered him.
Larry looked into her eyes.
I am so sorry. Who killed Carter?
About that time, the security detail brought a man onto the bridge.
Here's the one you asked us to bring up here, Commander.
Sheila cried out.
He is the one, the murderer.
Larry asked the prisoner.
Who the hell are you?
The prisoner remained silent. Larry turned to the security detail.
Take him to the brig, take his prints, take his DNA, do the mug shots, and throw him in a cell.
The lead security crewman, a huge burly chief petty officer, smiled and responded enthusiastically.
Aye, aye, sir.
With that, the security detail grabbed the prisoner by the arms and hauled him off the bridge. As they left, Larry said,
Chief, please, no huge bruises.
The chief just nodded, yes. Sheila was still crying as David and Larry attempted to comfort her. Then Admiral Sims entered the bridge, and with a soothing voice and nodding to Stella, they took her off the bridge to a VIP suite to eat and sleep as the ship pressed onto Sector 00. David slapped his first officer on the back. That's the way it's done. Thanks, Larry. Both men laughed a hearty laugh, then sobered up, wondering what else lay ahead. Finally, David ordered, "Helm, Sector 00, please." Ensign Withers had assumed the helm and replied,
Sector 00, aye, sir.
Then the ship resumed its course to Earth. Joel Carson entered the bridge.
Captain, shift change. You are relieved.
David smiled at his second officer. Joel, I'm still anticipating an attack of epic proportions. Stay alert. I still hope you'll have a quiet shift. Continue the corkscrew drive towards Sector 00. Joel smiled.
Aye, aye, sir.
David left the bridge to pick up little Davy and Ginny to settle in for the night. At the child care facility, little Davy ran to his dad's side. A lieutenant stopped David and asked about her giving the children a birthday party the next week. He replied, "That sounds like fun, talk it over with the ladies here." Then David felt something on his leg. He looked down to see Ginny pulling herself up on his leg. The little girl's face lit up as she babbled and David heard,
Dada.
He reached down and picked her up, smiling at the lieutenant. Yes. A birthday party would be wonderful. He then turned and took his children home. As he had said before, as long as there is love, we will survive and thrive.